All right, in this presentation, we are going to start to review the concepts and types of problems that we've been studying in Chapter 4. Now, this is just the first of two parts. There will be a second part that we do later in the week. But this is going to be our first review of the work that we've done in all of Chapter 4. So what we've been doing is basically looking at lines and different ways that we can represent lines. And we learned that there are three big ways, or three different ways, we can represent the equations of lines. The first one is slope-intercept in the format of y equals mx plus b. And then we also discovered point-slope form, which is in the format of y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And then there was a third form, and that was standard form. And the standard form is ax plus by equals c. And the two forms we're going to focus on in this first part presentation is slope-intercept form and point-slope form. So the black and the brown one is the ones we're going to focus on reviewing today. So this is a graph right here with a line. You'll notice I've got a line and a graph here. So this is just a line in a coordinate plane. So that's what we've been kind of studying and talking about. And here I have it in slope-intercept form. Y equals 2x plus 1. The 2 here is the slope, which is how tilty my line is. So if I go up from this point here and go up 2 spots, I'm going to go over 1 spot. And that's how tilty my line is. It's a tiltiness of 2. And then this 1 is representing where it's crossing the y-axis. So this equation is y equals 2x plus 1. The slope is 2, and the y-intercept is 1. So let's take a look at where we'll actually do this. We'll actually take a slope and a y-intercept and put it into an equation. So the problem here is write an equation of a line with a given slope and y-intercept. So m is negative 9/16, that's our slope, and our b is negative 147. So in this case, my m is negative 9/16, and that's going to go in here for m, into that part. And my b is negative 147, and that's going to go in for this part. And all I do is I fill in my m and my b when I write an equation. I don't fill in an x and a y, because as we talked about here and in class, these are all the x and y's in a coordinate plane, and as this line is going up or down, the x's and y's are changing. The tiltiness of the line doesn't change. Where it crosses the y-axis, it doesn't change, but my x and y's change. So when I'm filling in an equation of a line, I'm not going to fill in specific x and y's here. All right, so if my m is negative 9/16 and my b is negative 147, when I write this equation, I get y equals negative 9/16 x minus 147. And hopefully this is a super easy and fast problem for you. So let's take one step further here in doing this type of problem. Write an equation of the line with the given slope and point. So the point given specifically on the line is 2, negative 3, and our slope is 4. And we want to make this an equation of the line. So the line does go through the point 2, negative 3, but it goes through lots of different points as well. So what we need to do here is figure out our b. So we're going to fill in parts here to figure out what our b is. So our m is going to be 4, and that's going to go in here. Our x is 2, and that's going to go in here. And my y is negative 3, and that's going to go in here. So I'm just going to fill into the y equals mx plus b equation, and that's going to help us find our b, and then we'll know the equation of the actual line. So again, my x is 2, my m is 4, and my y is negative 3. So I get negative 3 equals 4 times 2 plus b. This can help us figure out b. I'm going to take 4 times 2, and that equals 8. And then in order to figure out our b, then I'm going to need to subtract 8 from both sides. And when I subtract 8 from both sides, I am going to get negative 11 for b. So I subtract 8 here. I subtract 8 here. Those are going to cancel. My b is negative 11. So then I fill it back into my equation. Y equals 4x because my m is 4. And my b is negative 11. So my equation of the line is y equals 4x minus 11. When we're talking about slope, we have two different formulas. We talked about the one that's kind of the official book one, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And then I gave you a Kenyon formula for slope, which is change in y over change in x, or delta y over delta x. You can use either formula for slope, or if you find a different way that works for you, then you can use either of these to calculate slope, because I'm going to expect you to be able to calculate the slope of a given line when you're given points. So let's take a look at an example of this expectation. So I want to figure out the slope of the line that's got the points -4, -1, and -9, -2. So I'm just going to use either one of these equations here. It doesn't matter which slope equation I use. I kind of like delta y over delta x, so I'm sorry about that, but that's kind of my thing. So I change in my y, so these are my y's. Maybe highlighting them might be a good idea. So my y's are -1 and 2. And my x's are -4 and -9. So my change in my y, and going from -1 to 2. Okay, actually, let's go in this direction. So I'm going to go from 2 to -1. So I go from 2 to -1. I'm going to be going down 3 slots. So when I go from 2 to -1, I go down 3 slots. All right. And if I go from -9 to -4, it looks like I'm going down, but actually when I'm going from -9 to -4, that's going up, and I'm going up 5 slots. So my slope of this line is going to be -3/5. Let's take a look at another question. Write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through 212 and has a slope of 3. So in this case, I'm just going to fill this into the y equals mx plus b format. So my slope is 3. Which is going to go here. My y is 12, which is going to go here. And my x is 2, which is going to go here. So I just fill this in. So then 12 equals 3 times 2 plus b. 3 times 2 is 6. And then in order to figure out what my b is, I'm going to have to subtract 6 from both sides. So when I subtract 6 from both sides, I am going to actually get 6. Because 12 minus 6 is 6. And my b is 6. And then I fill it back into my equation, and I get y equals 3x plus 6. So my slope was 3, which is the yellow part that's right here. That just goes down there. And I figured out my b at 6. All right. Write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through -4, 7 and has a slope of -2. So again, I'm just going to fill in into y equals mx plus b format. Okay, my slope is -2. My y is 7. And my x is -4. I'm sorry. Yeah, -4. It's hard to do this with highlighter. All right. So I get -2 times -4. That's going to be +8. So for that's kind of the tricky part there. And then to figure out my b, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And 7 minus 8 is going to be -1. So then my equation is going to be y equals -2x, because my slope is 2, and my b is -1. All right, point slope. Point slope is in the format of y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So let's take a look at putting an equation in point slope form. So in this case, the line passes through the point 8, -9 and has a slope of -13. So my slope is -13, which is going to go here. Okay. And my y is -9. And my x is 8. So when I have y minus -9, it's going to look like this. And then my slope is -13 and my x is 8. Okay. This I'm going to have to take care of because y minus -9 is the same as adding. So when I subtract a negative, it's the same as adding. So my equation then, and I'm done with this. This is all I do with point slope form, is then becomes y plus 9 equals negative 13 times x minus 8. So it's a really easy format to do when you know your slope and you know your point. I guess that's one of the advantages of point slope. So here we go. We want to write this line in point slope form. Here we don't know the slope. We just know 2 points that it goes through. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the slope. So we're going to use either of the 2 equations that I've talked about. I prefer change in y over change in x. And I'm going to go from left to right this time. Just do something different. So my y is going to go from -1 up to +2. So my y is going from -1 to +2. That's +3. And then my x is going from -4 down to -9. That's going down 5 slots. So my slope is then -3/5. And then to figure and write it into point slope form, I have a choice. I can either use the -4, -1 point for point slope form, or I can use -9 and 2. So it doesn't matter which one I use. I can use either one. If I decide to use the -4, -1, then this is going to become y plus 1 equals -3/5 times x plus 4. Or if I use this point here, then it's going to become y minus 2 equals -3/5 times x plus 9. So I have 2 formats. I can use either one. Either one is fine for an answer. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the first part presentation of Chapter 4 review. On Monday, I want you to do questions 4 through 6 and 8 through 10 on pages 287 to 288. Keep that assignment for now. Don't send it immediately. Then on Tuesday, I want you to do questions on page 291 of 1 through 6. When you have both Monday and Tuesday's assignment done, then you can send it to me in an email. And then on Wednesday, I want you to do page 288, 11 through 12, and on page 291, questions 7 through 9. When you have Wednesdays and Thursdays done, then send those together in a new email to me. And that will get you caught up in doing the first part review of Chapter 4. Thanks for watching.